Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are, tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful, with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Ravenswood Manor stood as the perfect stage for tragedy in the rolling English countryside of 1938. Elegant Art Deco lines met old-world grandeur, polished mahogany panels glowing under crystal chandeliers, velvet curtains framing tall windows. Guests gathered for a weekend chess tournament hosted by the brilliant but ruthless industrialist Sir Reginald Harrington. Then Sir Reginald was found dead in his study. He slumped over an exquisite ivory chess set, the white king piece clutched in his rigid hand, a silver letter opener buried in his back. Police saw a simple burglary gone wrong, the safe open, valuables missing. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth and intellect was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The grand drawing-room of Ravenswood Manor hummed with the quiet elegance of a well-rehearsed opening night. Hothouse lilies and roses filled crystal vases, their sweet fragrance mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee and faint traces of Cuban cigar smoke. Polished mahogany tables gleamed under the soft light of a crystal chandelier that tinkled gently whenever a door closed softly nearby. Silk evening gowns rustled as the ladies moved across the parquet floor, while the warmth of a crackling fire in the marble fireplace chased away the chill night air drifting from the terrace. Sir Reginald Harrington, tall and imperious, had invited a select cast for his annual chess weekend. The victim now lay in the adjacent study, discovered by the butler just after midnight. The exquisite ivory chess set, each piece a masterpiece of intricate carving, stood disrupted on the board, the white king clutched tightly in the dead man's rigid fingers. A silver letter opener, part of the desk set, protruded from between his shoulder blades. The safe hung open with papers scattered, yet several valuable documents remained untouched. Observe, mon ami, this scene plays its role too perfectly, and the stage was set with Art Deco sophistication, smooth crystal glasses still holding the faint chill of icy champagne, crisp linen napkins folded with precision, and soft kid gloves discarded on velvet settees. Footsteps echoed on the parquet as the household stirred. Rain pattered steadily against the tall windows, a rhythmic drum underscoring the growing tension. The scent of wood smoke blended with expensive perfume, Chanel No. 5, and the warm sandalwood cologne of the gentleman present. The cast of characters had gathered in the drawing-room under the watchful eye of the local inspector. Lady Eleanor Harrington, the widow, sat poised in black silk, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Her nephew, the ambitious young stockbroker Derek Langford, paced near the fireplace, his rough tweed jacket contrasting the refined surroundings. Miss Sylvia Grant, Sir Reginald's efficient secretary, twisted her hands in her lap, face pale beneath the chandelier's glow. Dr. Julian Ashford, the family physician and longtime friend, stood by the window staring into the night. Colonel Marcus Blake, a retired military man and chess rival, nursed a glass of fine wine, his expression stern. Completing the ensemble was Mrs. Violet Langford, Derek's striking wife, whose velvet gown and composed concern seemed almost too polished. Hercule Poirot arrived the following morning, summoned discreetly by an old acquaintance on the force. He stepped from his car into the cold terrace air, then entered the warm drawing-room, where the comforting scent of fresh coffee greeted him, and the little Belgian detective touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and surveyed the room with gleaming green eyes. "This, mes amis, is no ordinary stage," he murmured. "It is a theatre where every actor wears a mask." "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how Lady Eleanor composes her features into perfect widowhood." The shoulders shake appropriately, yet the handkerchief remains suspiciously dry. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? If you are hiding relief beneath grief, how would you perform sorrow? Poirot moved into the study, noting the textures, the cold marble of the mantelpiece, the smooth, cool ivory of the chess pieces, and the rough feel of scattered papers on the floor. The body had been removed, but the scene remained vivid. The grandfather clock chiming solemnly in the hall, a distant piano music floating from an unused salon like a melancholy underscore. Leftover champagne corks lay discarded, silent reminders of celebration turned to tragedy. The inspector offered the obvious explanation. The safe was rifled, some jewels taken. Sir Reginald must have surprised a burglar. But Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and made a small expressive gesture with his hands. Mais non, the Ivory King gripped in his hand. It is no random clue. This is a deliberate move on the chessboard of life. Someone played their piece with deadly precision. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it in the way Miss Sylvia avoids the eyes of young Derek? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot arranged a few objects on a side table symmetrically, restoring order and method to the chaos. The psychology, it is everything. Greed performing as grief, perhaps, or fear performing as confidence. He drew himself up to his full, though modest height, and addressed the gathered cast. Hercule Poirot has come to direct this drama toward the truth. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players' formal interviews unfolded like carefully staged scenes in the wood-panelled library of Ravenswood Manor. The air carried the scent of leather-bound books, fresh furniture wax, and lingering wood smoke from the drawing-room fire. Crisp linen napkins from breakfast still rested on a silver tray, beside half-empty cups of rich, hot coffee. Silk rustled softly as Lady Eleanor Harrington entered first, her black gown brushing the polished parquet floor. Poirot observed her performance of dignified widowhood with sharp attention. She weeps, yes. The handkerchief dabs at the eyes. The shoulders, they shake appropriately. But observe, the handkerchief remains perfectly dry. The mascara does not run. The performance of grief, it is technically perfect, too perfect. You see, but you do not observe the performance, mon ami. Ask yourself, why did she avoid speaking of the chess game her husband loved so fiercely? Consider the psychology. What role does this grieving widow need to play? Next came Derek Langford, his hands trembling slightly despite his confident stride. The warm sandalwood cologne mixed with the faint bitterness of medicine he claimed to take for nerves. I was in the billiard room with Colonel Blake until late, he stated smoothly. Yet the tell lingered. His voice stayed too steady when recounting the discovery of the body. The mask slips. Did you catch it? This actor plays the loyal nephew. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture of true shock? Miss Sylvia Grant followed, her soft kid gloves twisting nervously in her lap. The texture of heavy velvet curtains behind her framed her like a proscenium arch. She spoke quietly of late nights typing letters for Sir Reginald, her voice soft against the distant chiming of the grandfather clock and the gentle tinkling of the crystal chandelier in the hall. "He was brilliant at chess," she whispered. "Always one move ahead. Bravo!" But the performance, it was not convincing. Her hands betrayed her, fingers held too still when mentioning the open safe. Truth does not rehearse such calm. Dr. Julian Ashford entered with professional composure, the warmth of the room contrasting the chill he described feeling upon examining the body. A single thrust, precise and fatal, he noted, sipping a small glass of sweet liqueur from cut crystal. His tweed suit carried the faint scent of hothouse flowers from the conservatory. Yet Poirot noted how his gaze returned too often to the terrace doors. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the way his cologne cannot quite mask a slight tremor of fear. Colonel Marcus Blake was blunt and military in bearing, his role one of steadfast loyalty. His footsteps sounded firmly on the parquet as he arrived. He described a heated chess match with Sir Reginald earlier that evening, the ivory pieces clicking sharply like distant gunfire in the quiet house. "The man was a true strategist," he growled, the fire crackling warmly beside him as he spoke. "Ah, but you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me." His rough tweed felt coarse against the smooth silk cushions, yet his story flowed without a single stumble. Finally, Mrs. Violet Langford performed elegant concern, her silk gown whispering as she crossed the room. The dry taste of champagne from the previous night still lingered on her breath. "My husband and I adored Uncle Reginald," she said softly, but her eyes darted toward Derek with something sharper than mere affection. The tension rises, and someone will break character soon. Every actor in this drama has a secret. Poirot, he sees behind the masks. Contradictions appeared as missed cues in a flawed script. Derek claimed to have heard nothing unusual, yet Colonel Blake mentioned raised voices coming from the study around midnight. Lady Eleanor insisted she had retired early, but Sylvia recalled seeing her light still burning late into the night. Alibis overlapped imperfectly, like lines poorly memorized under pressure. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and tilted his egg-shaped head thoughtfully. The smell of expensive perfume, Chanel, still clung faintly to the air, mixing with the rich coffee and faint wood smoke. Rain continued to patter against the tall windows. Adding a steady rhythm to the unfolding drama, the players had entered. But who performed truth, and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. Deeper investigation began in the crisp morning light, filtering through rain-streaked windows of Ravenswood Manor. Poirot examined the ivory chess set closely in the study. The smooth carved surfaces cooled beneath his fingertips. One small pawn was missing from the board, a tiny detail amid the grandeur of leather chairs and polished mahogany. The faint scent of expensive perfume, Chanel No. 5, still clung to a discarded silk scarf near the open safe. A mask slipped with the first revelation. When questioned again, Miss Sylvia Grant faltered and admitted she had seen Derek Langford near the study shortly after midnight, though her earlier statement had placed him firmly in the billiard room. Her hands trembled visibly, and the rough texture of a nearby tweed throw contrasting with her soft kid gloves. The director method unfolded in Poirot's sharp mind. "The performance," She weeps, yes. The handkerchief dabs at the eyes. The shoulders shake appropriately. The tell, but observe, the handkerchief remains dry. The mascara does not run. The performance of loyal secretary, it is technically perfect. Too perfect. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a man performed shocks so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was momentarily deceived. He had rehearsed in front of mirrors, practiced the widening of the eyes and the dropping of the jaw. But he made one fatal error. He reached for his cigarette case with hands far too steady. A man truly shocked does not possess such steady hands. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies. This is what the little grey cells understand, the psychology beneath the performance. The truth. Therefore, this secretary knew more than she first admitted. Her hesitation is costume, not genuine confusion. You see it now, no? The theatre crumbles. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it when Sylvia's voice wavered on Derrick's name? Reflection. In the theatre of Ravenswood, we observe how ambition performs as familial duty and loyalty masks personal resentment. Humans wear masks because society demands polished roles. The grieving widow, the ambitious nephew, the devoted secretary. Beneath these performances, fear of exposure or greed for inheritance drives the act. Why reveal raw hatred when calm indifference plays better to the audience of family and friends? I recall a glittering case in a London townhouse where a woman performed the role of devoted wife with flawless elegance. She attended every dinner on her husband's arm, her silk gown rustling, expensive perfume wafting, laughter bright and convincing. Yet she slowly poisoned him with bitter medicine disguised as tonic. Her mask was perfection itself, until one missed cue. She smiled too quickly at the news of his sudden death. Genuine love would have delayed that smile by a single heartbeat. The body betrays what the face conceals. Steady hands where trembling should appear. Eyes that shine with relief instead of tears. Universally, deception thrives in the space between what we show and what we truly feel. Yet the theatre of crime holds one unchanging truth. Every actor eventually forgets their line, and the spotlight of sustained observation exposes the cracks. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Watch not the grand gestures of sorrow or loyalty, but the small hesitations and steady hands. There the mask cracks, revealing the soul beneath the role. The investigation continued with rich sensory detail. Hot coffee steamed in delicate cups, its strong continental aroma cutting through the chill morning air on the terrace. Cold marble mantelpieces contrasted the fire's warmth still glowing in the drawing room. The taste of sweet liqueur lingered on Dr. Ashford's breath during further questioning. Distant piano music drifted from the salon, soft and melancholy, while the grandfather clock chimed the passing hours with solemn regularity. Footsteps echoed on parquet floors as the cast moved uneasily between rooms, the silk rustling and crystal chandeliers tinkling overhead. More contradictions surfaced like missed cues. Colonel Blake's claim of an early night was challenged by a servant who heard his heavy footsteps well after midnight. Lady Eleanor's perfect widow performance showed new strain when pressed about the changed will. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as the web of performances tightened. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed lines. Poirot began to pressure the suspects with precision in the wood-panelled library, turning each interview into a tense, private scene. The warm drawing-room glow filtered through half-open doors, contrasting the chill accusations that now filled the air. Rehearsed alibis were tested like fragile scripts under the steady light of Art Deco lamps. Derek Langford's lines faltered first when confronted with Sylvia's revised statement. His hands, once confident, now fidgeted with a crystal glass of fine wine. The rich aroma of the wine mixed with his sandalwood cologne. "I only stepped out for air," he insisted, but the tell was unmistakable. His voice cracked slightly on the word alone. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Observe how Mrs. Violet Langford defends her husband too quickly, her silk gown rustling with forced elegance. The mask slips. Did you catch it in her overly bright smile, and the way her fingers tightened on the velvet armrest? Colonel Marcus Blake's military role began to strain as Poirot questioned the exact timing of the chess match. The faint scent of his cigar smoke still clung to his rough tweed jacket, it blending with the polished furniture wax. "We played until 11 sharp," he barked, yet the grandfather clock's chimes and servant testimony told a different story. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Ask yourself, if you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Would your eyes meet Poirot's steadily, or slide away like Dr. Ashford's? Lady Eleanor's grief performance grew brittle under pressure. Her expensive Chanel perfume now seemed cloying in the confined space, mixing with the lingering wood smoke from the fireplace. She claimed complete ignorance of the missing ivory pawn, but her hands trembled when Poirot mentioned the changed will. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and tilted his egg-shaped head. He made a small, expressive gesture with his hands. "This role you play, Madame, the devoted and grieving wife, it does not convince Hercule Poirot. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how Dr. Ashford's professional calm cracks when asked about Sir Reginald's heart condition and the precise timing of death. False performances exposed small but telling lies. Derek's financial desperation, hidden behind ambitious charm, began to surface. A past quarrel between Sir Reginald and Colonel Blake over a large chess wager came to light. Sylvia's secret admiration for her employer had long since turned into quiet resentment. Violet's elegant support for her husband masked her own ambition to rise in society. The air grew heavier with the scent of hot coffee and sweet liqueur offered to steady nerves. Cold terrace air drifted in whenever a door opened, contrasting the fire's warmth. Silk rustled nervously, crystal glasses clinked, and rain continued its steady patter against the tall windows. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Poirot could feel the drama shifting. The actors were tiring. Truth needed no rehearsal, and soon the stage would reveal who had forgotten their lines. We approach the final act. Have you identified the true performer yet? The spotlight of truth is about to shine. On whom will it fall? Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. A major confrontation erupted in the grand drawing room as rain lashed fiercely against the tall windows of Ravenswood Manor. Poirot gathered Derek Langford and Miss Sylvia Grant together under the soft glow of the crystal chandelier. The air hung thick with the scent of hothouse lilies and roses, hot coffee, and the faint bitterness of medicine. Derek's mask began to crack completely during the intense emotional exchange. "You were in the study that night," Poirot directed sharply, his green eyes gleaming. Derek collapsed into a velvet armchair, the silk cushions muffling his sudden sob. Real feeling finally emerged, raw greed mixed with naked terror, no longer hidden behind the polished role of the loyal nephew. "He promised me everything, but then threatened to cut me off completely over my bad investments," he gasped, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Poirot applied the director method with calm precision. Of the performance, he raged against the accusations with convincing outrage and shocked denial. The tell, but observe, his hands reached too steadily for the small ivory pawn he suddenly produced as supposed evidence. Genuine panic does not allow such deliberate precision. The psychology. I am reminded of the case of the gambler who performed perfect innocence after cheating at cards in a grand country house. He rehearsed his alibis late into the night, practiced the trembling voice and widened eyes. Yet he forgot that true fear makes the voice waver unevenly, and the hands lose all steadiness. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies. This is what the little grey cells understand. The psychology beneath the performance. The truth. Therefore, this man knew the special significance of the chess piece as a taunt. His breakdown reveals the true motive of greed and desperation. You see it now, no? The theatre crumbles. Crucial psychological insight dawned on the room. Greed had long performed as youthful ambition and familial loyalty. Guilt now manifested physically in the trembling hands, the averted gaze, and the voice that could no longer hold its smooth rehearsal. The spotlight of truth shone brightly, exposing how the absence of real love had masked a cold obsession for wealth and status. The others watched in stunned silence, their own masks straining under the pressure. Mrs. Violet Langford's elegant confidence faltered into visible fear, her silk gown suddenly seeming less poised. Lady Eleanor sat rigid, the dry handkerchief forgotten in her lap. Colonel Blake's military bearing stiffened, while Dr. E. Ashford looked away toward the cold terrace. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it in the way Derek's shoulders finally slumped when the Ivory King was mentioned? Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. The warmth of the crackling fire contrasted sharply with the chill night air seeping through the windows. The distant sound of the grandfather clock chiming added solemn weight to the moment. Silk rustled nervously as the cast shifted in their seats. The taste of bitter medicine seemed to linger on the air alongside the rich aroma of coffee. Ask yourself, if you were hiding such guilt, how would you perform innocence? Would your hands stay steady, or would they betray you as Derek's have done? And the tension in the room rose to breaking point. Someone had finally broken character. The elegant Art Deco stage, with its polished mahogany and velvet curtains, now felt smaller and more intimate. The drama had reached a turning point. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. Past secrets began to emerge from the shadows backstage of the elegant Ravenswood Manor. Hidden connections wove together like forgotten props in a theatre trunk. Sir Reginald had discovered Derek Langford's secret embezzlement from the family business and planned to disinherit him entirely, using the chess game as a final metaphorical confrontation. The Ivory King clutched in the dead man's hand was no accident. It was Derek's bitter signature. Miss Sylvia Grant had been far more than a mere secretary. She had been Sir Reginald's discarded lover, and nursing quiet resentment after he ended their affair with cold indifference. The Colonel held old gambling debts that Sir Reginald had refused to forgive. Dr. Julian Ashford knew of a hidden second will that favoured Lady Eleanor more generously than anyone realised. Mrs. Violet Langford had quietly pushed her husband toward desperate action, her ambition burning brighter than her public elegance suggested. The backstage of relationships stood fully exposed. Lady Eleanor's relief at sudden freedom from a domineering husband flickered behind her widow's mask. Violet's supportive wife role masked her hunger for higher social standing and wealth. Textures told their own stories, rough-forged documents hidden inside velvet-lined drawers, the cold metal of the silver letter opener chosen for its sharp symbolic precision, the smooth ivory pieces that had become instruments of both game and murder. The air in the drawing-room carried the mingled scents of hothouse roses, strong continental coffee, and faint sandalwood cologne. Cold terrace air drifted in through slightly opened windows, contrasting the fire's warm crackle. Silk gowns rustled as the cast shifted uneasily. The grandfather clock chimed softly while distant piano music added a melancholy undertone. Crystal glasses stood empty, their icy champagne long gone. Reflection behind the curtains of Ravenswood, motives hid like carefully stored stage props. Humans conceal because exposure risks everything: reputation, love, freedom, and fortune. Greed dresses itself as necessity. Hate performs as loyalty. Why show raw obsession when calm indifference plays so convincingly to the audience? If society writes the scripts we are expected to follow. The perfect host, the grieving family member, the loyal friend. I recall a glittering case aboard an ocean liner crossing the Atlantic. A woman performed the role of devoted sister with flawless grace. She laughed at jokes, shared dry champagne, her silk gown impeccable under the ship's crystal chandeliers. She even helped nurse her wealthy sibling during the voyage. Yet she plotted a fatal accident to secure the inheritance. Her mask remained perfect until one unguarded moment. Her hand stayed perfectly steady while pouring the poisoned drink. Genuine affection would have shown the slightest tremor. The body knows the truth, even when the face lies. Poirot saw how she smiled too quickly at her own reflection in the cabin mirror when she thought no one watched. Truth triumphed, because no performance can withstand endless, careful observation. Universally, hidden motives fester in darkness until the spotlight of truth forces them into the open. Every curtain hides a secret. Every secret carries a motive born of fear, greed, or desperate desire. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Always peer behind the obvious role being played. There, beneath the polished lines and graceful gestures, lies the actor's true and dangerous script. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as the connections tightened like a well-woven net. The once grand setting had shifted from mere crime scene to a theatre of unfolding revelation. The elegant Art Deco lines of the manor now felt heavier with truth. Footsteps on parquet floors sounded heavier. The smell of wood smoke and fresh flowers seemed sharper, and the cast moved through the rooms with strained performances, their masks growing thinner by the hour. Derek's earlier breakdown had cracked the entire production. Sylvia's resentment, Violet's ambition, and the others' secrets now lay exposed in the harsh light. Behind every curtain, a secret, every secret a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The entire cast assembled in the grand drawing-room of Ravenswood Manor, the stage lit by the warm glow of the crackling fire and the soft sparkle of the crystal chandelier. Champagne glasses stood unused on polished mahogany tables, their faint chill long gone. The air carried the mingled scents of hothouse lilies, strong continental coffee, and lingering sandalwood cologne. Rain had eased, but the grandfather clock chimed solemnly as if marking the final curtain. Hercule Poirot stood before them, each drawing himself up to his full modest height. He adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision and surveyed the actors with gleaming green eyes. His small hands made an expressive gesture as he began to direct the final scene. Mesdames et messieurs, you have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we? Lady Eleanor, you played the grieving widow with dignified restraint, but the grief, it was costume. Your dry eyes and remarkably quick recovery betrayed that you already knew of the changed will that left you far more comfortable than before. Derek Langford, you performed the ambitious yet loyal nephew with convincing charm, but loyalty does not lie about alibis, nor does it hide financial desperation and secret meetings near the study at midnight. Miss Sylvia Grant, your role was the innocent and devoted secretary. Yet innocent secretaries do not conceal past romantic entanglements or plant misleading clues about missing jewels. Colonel Marcus Blake, you played the steadfast chess rival and loyal friend, but your military stories masked old gambling debts and resentment over refused loans. Dr. Julian Ashford, you performed the helpful and professional physician, yet your medical precision conveniently hid your knowledge of Sir Reginald's heart condition and the exact timing that would make the murder appear as a simple burglary. Mrs. Violet Langford, you gave the elegant performance of the supportive wife, but your silk and velvet poise masked the ambition that quietly pushed your husband toward desperate action. And so we come to our leading performer, Derek Langford. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The shock, the outrage, the helpful cooperation, magnifique. You even suggested directions for the investigation. But you made one small error, one tiny moment when the mask slipped completely. You clutched the Ivory King too deliberately in your demonstration. A chessmaster's taunt turned into your own signature. The White King was toppled because you saw yourself as the player who delivers checkmate to the old regime. The missing pawn, the open safe, the letter opener, all arranged to look like burglary. But the body knows the truth even when the face lies. Your steady hands when producing that pawn betrayed you. Genuine panic does not allow such precision. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth, she takes her bow. A heavy silence descended. Derek's face drained of colour. His shoulders slumped as the final mask shattered. Violet turned away, her elegant composure broken. Lady Eleanor sat straighter, relief replacing her rehearsed grief. Sylvia wept quietly, real tears at last. The Colonel nodded grimly, while Dr. Ashford looked down at the cold marble floor. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and tilted his egg-shaped head. You see it now, no? Greed performed as ambition. Fear performed as confidence. Hate performed as loyalty. But the theatre of crime has one truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The spotlight of truth has fallen. The guilty one stands exposed. The cast remained frozen in the warm drawing room, the fire crackling softly beside them. Silk rustled as small movements betrayed inner turmoil, and the distant piano music had fallen silent. Only the steady ticking of the grandfather clock remained. Derek Langford, once the convincing young strategist, now sat exposed in the harsh, theatrical light. No more polished lines, no more rehearsed shock, only the true face remained. The final act concluded, only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The final act had ended, yet the grand drawing-room of Ravenswood Manor still held its breath. The crystal chandelier continued its gentle tinkling, as faint draughts moved through the tall windows. The fire crackled warmly, casting flickering light across polished mahogany and velvet curtains. The sweet scent of hothouse lilies mingled with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee that a maid had quietly served to steady nerves. A cold terrace air slipped in whenever a door opened, contrasting the fire's comforting warmth. Reactions rippled through the cast like the final bows of a draining performance. Lady Eleanor Harrington rose slowly from her chair, her black silk gown rustling. The rehearsed widow's mask had fallen away completely. In its place stood quiet relief and newfound independence. She no longer dabbed at dry eyes. Her shoulders no longer shook for show. "It is over," she said softly, her voice free of performance. Derek Langford remained seated, his face pale and stripped of all charm. The ambitious nephew role had shattered. Greed, once dressed as youthful energy, now lay naked. His hands, which had trembled only moments ago with calculated effect, now shook with genuine defeat. He stared at the carpet, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Violet Langford turned away toward the window, her elegant velvet gown suddenly seeming less poised. The supportive wife performance had crumbled. Ambition that had pushed her husband toward crime now left only shame and regret. She twisted her soft kid gloves tightly, the texture rough against her palms. Miss Sylvia Grant wept openly, but these were real tears at last, no dry handkerchief, no rehearsed sorrow. The discarded lover's resentment had been exposed, yet with it came a strange release. She accepted a crisp linen napkin from the maid to wipe her face, the fabric cool and comforting. Colonel Marcus Blake stood stiffly, his military bearing intact but gentler. The steadfast rival role had been honest in parts, yet old resentments had stained it. He nodded once toward Poirot, a gesture of reluctant respect. "You saw through every line," he muttered, the scent of his cigar smoke still faint on his rough tweed jacket. Dr. Julian Ashford looked down at the cold marble mantel, his professional composure cracked. The helpful physician mask had hidden convenient knowledge. He sipped the last of his sweet liqueur from a crystal glass, the taste now bitter on his tongue. Poirot moved among them with quiet authority. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and arranged a few objects on a side table symmetrically, restoring order and method even in the aftermath. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction, but there was no triumph in his expression, only the calm of a director who had guided the drama to its necessary end. Justice began its slow machinery. The local inspector returned with formal statements and arrangements for Derek's arrest. His servants moved quietly, footsteps soft on the parquet floor. Doors closed with gentle finality. The grandfather clock chimed the hour, marking time that no longer belonged to lies. The elegant Art Deco stage, once filled with tension and rehearsed performances, now felt quieter. Silk rustled less nervously. The distant piano music remained silent. Rain had stopped, leaving only the fresh, clean smell of wet earth drifting from the terrace. Characters stood stripped of their masks, revealing ordinary humans beneath, flawed, frightened, and in some cases strangely freed. Lady Eleanor already spoke of future plans with a steady voice. Sylvia mentioned seeking new employment far from Ravenswood. Violet sat alone, contemplating the cost of ambition. The theatre of crime had emptied its illusions. Poirot observed them all with careful eyes. No applause for this performance, he murmured, only justice. The setting itself seemed to soften. The warm drawing-room fire continued to glow, but the chill of murder had lifted. Polished surfaces reflected calmer faces. The ivory chess set, now safely put away, no longer dominated the scene. One by one, the cast began to disperse to their rooms or prepare for departure. Transformations were visible in small gestures. Straighter postures, genuine expressions, eyes that no longer avoided the truth. The curtain call had come. No applause echoed through the manor. Only the quiet sound of justice taking its place. The drama was finished. The actors had left their roles behind. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show. The theatre of Ravenswood Manor gradually emptied in the days following the final revelation. Morning light filtered through the tall windows, softening the Art Deco lines and polishing the mahogany panels with a gentler glow. The crystal chandelier hung still, no longer tinkling with nervous movement. Hothouse lilies and roses in their vases began to fade. Their sweet fragrance now mixed with the fresh scent of rain-cleansed air, drifting from the open terrace doors. The fire had burned low, leaving only a faint warmth and the clean smell of wood ash. Lady Eleanor Harrington walked through the drawing-room with a new lightness in her step. The black silk gown she had worn as costume was replaced by a simple but elegant day dress. Her mask of dignified widowhood had been stripped away completely, revealing a woman ready to live without the shadow of a domineering husband. She spoke quietly to the staff about future plans for the estate, her voice steady and free of rehearsed sorrow. The dry handkerchief was gone. Real calm had taken its place. Derek Langford was no longer part of the household. His transformation from convincing performer to exposed murderer was complete. The ambitious nephew, who had once paced confidently near the fireplace, now faced the cold reality of justice. Greed, which had performed so smoothly as familial loyalty, had led him to the dock. His rehearsed charm had failed him in the end. Mrs. Violet Langford prepared to leave Ravenswood. Her striking velvet and silk gowns seemed less vibrant as she packed. The elegant, supportive wife role had crumbled, leaving behind shame and a painful awareness of how ambition had pushed her husband toward ruin. She moved with subdued grace, her soft kid gloves folded neatly, the scent of her perfume fainter now. Society's expectations had forced her into a performance she could no longer sustain. Miss Sylvia Grant stood in the library one last time, her hands no longer twisting nervously. The secretary's mask of innocent devotion had been replaced by honest reflection. Her past resentment toward Sir Reginald had been exposed, yet with revelation came release. She spoke of new employment in London, her voice carrying genuine hope rather than rehearsed calm. The rough texture of a simple travelling coat replaced the elegant gowns she had worn during the weekend. Colonel Marcus Blake took a final turn on the terrace, breathing the chill morning air. His military bearing remained, but the old resentments over chess wagers and debts had lost their power. He nodded to Poirot with quiet respect before departing, his rough tweed jacket carrying the faint scent of cigar smoke. The steadfast rival role had been partly true. Now it could rest without hidden bitterness. Dr. Julian Ashford left quietly, his professional composure restored but gentler. The helpful physician mask had hidden convenient knowledge, yet the exposure had prompted honest self-examination. He carried the taste of bitter medicine on his tongue as a reminder of how close he had come to moral compromise. Poirot remained a short while longer, observing the transformations with satisfaction. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged a few objects on a side table with precise, symmetrical order. His green eyes gleamed as he watched the manor return to peace. The grand stage, once filled with tension, lies, and the drama of murder, now breathed easier. Footsteps on the parquet floor sounded lighter. The grandfather clock chimed without urgency. Distant piano music, when it returned, played softly and without melancholy. The setting itself had transformed. The elegant country house shifted from a theatre of crime and strained performances to a peaceful home once more. Velvet curtains hung calmly. Polished mahogany reflected clear daylight instead of shadowed suspicion. The ivory chess set had been put away, its pieces no longer symbols of deadly strategy, but simply beautiful objects. You, mon ami, have watched the entire drama unfold. From passive viewer, you became an active analyst, noticing the slipped masks, the rehearsed lines, and the psychological tells. The spotlight of truth has done its work. The guilty have been exposed. The innocent have been freed from suspicion. Lessons lingered in the quiet rooms. Greed cannot hide forever behind ambition. Fear eventually cracks the mask of confidence. Hate cannot sustain the performance of loyalty. Truth, though delayed, always takes its bow when the curtain falls. The cast had dispersed to their separate futures. Lady Eleanor would reshape the estate with independence. Sylvia would build a new life unburdened by past secrets. Violet faced the difficult path of redemption. The others carried quieter wisdom from the weekend that had begun with chess and ended with justice. Poirot stood on the terrace for a moment, feeling the chill air on his face contrasted with the warm drawing-room behind him. The drama was complete. The actors had removed their costumes. The stage stood empty, yet rich with the memory of revelation. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. In the quiet comfort of his London apartment, Hercule Poirot sat in his favourite armchair beside a small table. A steaming cup of tisane released its delicate herbal fragrance into the room, mingling with the scent of fresh flowers arranged symmetrically in a crystal vase. Polished mahogany furniture gleamed under soft lamplight. Outside, the city hummed faintly, but here order and method reigned. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, his green eyes reflecting on the drama that had unfolded at Ravenswood Manor. The theatre of crime had closed its doors, yet the performance lingered in his mind. News of the characters' fates had reached him. Derek Langford awaited trial, his convincing mask of the loyal nephew forever shattered. Lady Eleanor had begun reshaping her life with genuine calm and independence. Sylvia Grant had taken a new position in London, unburdened by past secrets. Violet Langford faced the consequences of her ambition with quiet shame. Colonel Blake returned to his military circles wiser, and Dr. Ashford continued his practice with greater honesty. The elegant country house now stood peaceful once more, its Art Deco lines free of shadows. Why do people perform rather than reveal the truth? Fear of judgment, greed for advantage, pride in the image they have carefully crafted. These forces compel men and women to wear masks. Society demands roles. The devoted wife, the loyal nephew, the efficient secretary. Ask the grieving widow. Beneath the polished surface, raw emotions rage, greed, resentment, desperation. They rehearse their lines in mirrors, practice their gestures, perfect their expressions. Yet the body betrays them. Steady hands where trembling should appear. Dry eyes when tears are expected. A voice too smooth when shock should crack it. In the Ravenswood case, Derek performed ambition as loyalty and shock as innocence. He arranged the scene like a chess move. The open safe, the missing jewels, the ivory king clutched in the victim's hand as a final taunt. But one small tell exposed him. The deliberate steadiness when he produced that pawn. Genuine panic does not allow such precision. The psychology, it is everything. This reminds Poirot of the Styles affair, where a seemingly devoted wife performed nursing and affection with flawless grace. She moved through the house in silk gowns, her perfume elegant, her laughter bright for visitors. She poured medicine with hands that never shook. Yet true care would have shown hesitation, a tremor of concern. She smiled too quickly at her reflection when alone. The little grey cells noted every false note. In the end, no performance withstands sustained observation. The theatre crumbles because deception demands constant energy. Truth flows naturally. Lies must be directed, rehearsed, and sustained. Guilt always betrays the actor. It manifests in small physical signs, the averted gaze, the too perfect alibi, the hands that fidget only when the spotlight turns away. People wear the masks society forces upon them, yet when the curtain rises on truth, those masks slip. Love-masking obsession reveals itself in possessive glances. Hate performing as loyalty cracks in overly effusive praise. Calm masking terror shows in the rigid shoulders and forced smile. The psychology of revelation fascinates. Truth triumphs because performances are exhausting. One missed cue, one forgotten line, and the entire production collapses. In Ravenswood, greed performed as necessity until the mask fell completely in the drawing room. The spotlight of truth shone, and only the real faces remained. Poirot sipped his tisane, its warm taste comforting. He arranged the flowers with precise symmetry, restoring order. Humans will always perform. Society writes the scripts we feel compelled to follow. Yet the careful observer, you, mon ami, learns to watch the unguarded moments. When one thinks no one is watching, and the true self emerges. There the difference between performed grief and real sorrow lies in the eyes, the hands, the breath. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because deception is a heavy costume. It restricts movement, demands constant adjustment, and tires the wearer. Genuine emotion needs no rehearsal. It flows freely, even when painful. The theatre of crime has one unchanging truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. The body knows what the face tries to hide. Poirot leaned back, his egg-shaped head tilted slightly. The drama at Ravenswood had been rich in psychology, greed dressed as ambition, fear as confidence, hate as loyalty. He had directed the investigation not with brute evidence, but with understanding of human nature. The masks had been removed. Justice had taken its quiet bow. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always. The stage awaits another drama, and you, the careful observer, will join him in seeing behind the masks. Watch the small gestures. Notice the dry handkerchief. Listen for the voice that flows too smoothly. The curtain will rise again. Truth will take its final bow. The apartment fell into peaceful silence, the tisane cup empty, the flowers perfectly arranged. The human drama continued elsewhere, but here, in this small, ordered space, Poirot reviewed the performance with quiet wisdom. the lessons of Ravenswood would linger, as they always did. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always,